I had my instructors in buds surround me, and this warrant officer was like, "Hey, come here." And he's standing in my face during inspection. He's like looking at me like he looked like he's trying to read something on my face or something like that. And eventually they all surrounded me, and they're like trying to figure out why this warrant officer is so intrigued with looking at me. And he goes, "What do you think, guys?" And they're all kind of like, they didn't really know what to say to the warrant officer. And he's like, "I think this is the ugliest motherfucker we've ever had come through training." I was like, "Jack." Hey, I'll take that over most feminine,
right.
I guess.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Again, if I learned there, like, all right, if this is the worst they're going to get me. Like, all right, fair enough, guys. I'll show you my show choir routine.
And what were you, like 19?
Mm-hmm.
Check.
Yep.
And then from, you get done with boot camp.
Infantry training just down the street, Camp Pendleton, and that's where they, 03 was open, so they bring in all the 0311 basic infantry, 31 machine gunner, 41 mortarmen, and then the 21s walk in, and they got the bling, and they're just the fucking, the peak performers. You can immediately tell, but just cool, laid back, and we're like, this is the coolest job you're ever going to be able to do in the Marine Corps. And
did you get to select what you wanted to do then out of those?
So it went by, ASVAB and your PFT and whatever other metrics they use to determine that. The Recon was like, anybody that wants to give it a shot, try out or sign up, and we'll be back for the in-doc in, a couple of days, which was basically a Thursday, Friday, Saturday evolution of ruck, run, swim, just who's going to quit.
How was your swimming?
Really good.
How was that? Did you grow up in the
pond? Grew up on a lake,
something?
Hunting turtles, and that was, yeah.
We got a turtle hunter over
right.
here. Hell yeah.
And just playing out. I was outdoorsy, growing up for sure, growing up out in the country, so that came just very natural to me. I was actually lucky, I think, that because my run times are not great, I'm a pack mule, I can carry a ruck all day. But the swim, obviously, swimming is the great equalizer among men, right? You get a guy underwater and they just can freak out, and then you're done.
So you did 3-day selection, and how many guys tried for it?
There's probably 60, and 5 of us made it through.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Damn.
There was, again, within the first day, it was down to, 18, 19 of us.
Because a bunch of people just can't swim.
Can't swim.
Yeah.
So it was over. And then it's just attrition by who wants to be here and who doesn't. And it was weird because at that point, the first Recon had just stepped up from a company to a battalion sometime, after 9/11, before I got there. And so they were basically trying to fill slots. So we thought when we checked in on 9/11/2002, and us 5 guys, we thought we were immediately going to be put in a roper platoon, train up before we go to BRC, get some level of institutional knowledge before we got to go. And it was, no, you guys are going in slack, man. We got to fill teams. So we're basically training up for the deployment for the invasion of Iraq. So from September through January, us 5 guys were just put into a team as the low man on the totem pole and said, learn as much as you can.
Because normally you'd go to the course in Coronado, right? It's called BRC,
Yep.
right? Basic Reconnaissance Course.
Yes.
And that's sort of, how long is that thing? That's like a pretty extensive course.
Yeah, it's 3 months. It's so first phase is just workout. You're just working out, running, swimming, lifting boats. Second phase is water phase. So you're doing boats, fins, just water, and then third phase is patrol phase. So you get, you work up with all of your technical radio, reconnaissance skills, and then you do a 2-week-long mission up in Camp Pendleton.
Do you go to, on the normal pathway, do you go to airborne and scuba
yes.
for that?
So, if the traditional path would have been, from there you get to go to your select schools. So that's jump, dive, SEER, Ranger. I was a FAC, so that's where I eventually got to go and learn to drop bombs. But, and then it was some guys got to Ranger selection. Some guys got to go to, whatever cool schools there are out there.
So none of that for you and your 5 buddies, straight into a platoon, getting ready to deploy, and you're deploying to Iraq when you show up there?
No. Fuck, I didn't know anything. I barely knew my name at that point, but they were like, get on the boat, and we're heading out. And at some point, once we were already deployed, they were like, we're headed to Iraq, guys. There's going to be a big invasion. And that we left somewhere right after Christmas. We got leave, came back, and everybody's like, pack your shit, get on the boat. And that was it.
Were you pretty pumped about this whole scenario? Were you nervous? Were you like, let's go?
Yeah, I mean, you get to these units, right? And these guys are just superhuman, right? And they're so technically proficient. They're so good at the basic stuff. And we didn't know anything, right? We didn't know how to talk. We didn't know how to walk. We didn't know how to shoot. It was just OJT. You look at the guys that you look up to and that seem to be the most stellar in the platoon, and you just copy what they're doing.
Were they not just kind of pissed that you guys were there? Did they hold it?
Fuck.
Oh yeah, okay.
Oh God. It was horrible. I mean, the hazing that was, again, this was Wild West. So, and it was.
And did you have post-Afghanistan guys that were coming home from combat in Afghanistan, or no?
Not yet. There were a few, but basically 1 or 2 platoons. And those guys were, they were already working back up for the MEU, or they were already at a schoolhouse or somewhere. So there wasn't a lot of changeover. It was basically a lot of green guys. There were some guys that had done a few MEUs, and they were the senior guys. I think Rudy and some of the guys from Generation Kill had just gotten back from Afghanistan, but there was like 1 or 2 platoons that had made it over, and they were obviously some of the most the guys we were looking up to, the guys that we wanted to be like, and it just. We were hazed nonstop. I mean, it was training, don't get me wrong, but it was the, midnight wake up call, go get the rock on the hill kind of thing. And then you get back and you're like, that was the wrong rock. Oh, well, shit. Maybe you should come up with me and tell me.
Help me identify.
So.
I can't imagine, this is, I would say, fairly the equivalent of having guys put into your SEAL platoon that hadn't been to buds. You'd be not quite, because the Navy boot camp has nothing to do with anything that you ever do in the field. But I can imagine there might have been some grudges held.
Yeah, but it was a perfect storm. It wasn't our fault, right? Obviously, but they didn't. There was no love lost there either. It was if you're here, we're going to make you earn it one way or the other, and. Yeah, so that initial kickoff on Iraq was, we basically were thrown to the feet to the fire immediately, and a lot of training, a lot of shooting on the ship on the way over there. Just, again, so basic, but just enough to be dangerous, I guess, without having gone through any of the proper professional schools to earn the title and get to the team the traditional way.
So you show up, you get on the ship, you guys are training, you're heading over there, shooting off the fantail, getting your weapons dialed in. Then what, you get there and go right into Kuwait?
Yes. The other big part was, we were basically fab welding pieces of metal off the ship to the Humvees, because these were just basic, and they were like, well, you guys might want to put some armor on there. And so they just, they look like gypsy wagons with bolted on everything we could steal and scrap from off the ship. And we landed in Iraq sometime in, February, heloed off. We're camped there in Kuwait for about a month. Again, training, just getting acclimated. I'd never been out of the U.S., let alone, Indiana for that matter. And then, you're over there just like, holy shit, what's going on? And it was massive, right? So there's international force, the Brits, everybody's there, and they're just waiting. Like it's that, before a race kicks off, you're just built up so much tension and anxiety that it was crazy. And then March, 18th, 19th of 2003, the war kicked off, and we were in it.